In terms of the amount of investment, we've talked to a number of partners in the region, but also across the world who are very interested in it. They think that it's a very fertile investment opportunity. We actually spent a fair amount of time talking today about how we could make things go faster. I think the Prime Minister wants things to go as fast as possible because, again, this interconnectedness, this economic development is good for prosperity, but it's also good for peace. The United States is certainly going to play a very positive and constructive role in this, but I don't think that money is the issue. I think there's actually a lot of capital interest in this particular project. There are a lot of people across the world who think that they can make a good return on investment by investing in Armenia and investing in this TRIP project. I think the question is really, how do we get the peace deal into a good next phase? How do we keep the Prime Minister in a good place where he can start to focus on the future? I know he has an election coming up. I won't talk about that, but to the extent my endorsement means anything, he certainly has it, because this is a guy who can build the long-term partnership to make this kind of a thing stick. This has not happened overnight, but I think we've already made great progress in just the months since August 8th.
Thank you. The next question.
Next questions from the colleagues from the United States.
Thank you. Mr. Vice President, on the Iran negotiations, would the U.S. allow limited uranium enrichment, or is no enrichment whatsoever a red line in negotiations?
Well, I think the president's going to make the ultimate determination about where we draw the red lines in the negotiations. If you go back to the original negotiation that happened between us and the Iranians, the president was trying very, very hard to actually strike a constructive deal that would have been good for the United States. But frankly, the entire administration agreed if the Iranians were smart enough to have made that agreement, then it would have been good for them too. We're obviously much more focused tonight on the issues related to U.S.-Armenia cooperation, but I'll let the president speak to exactly where he wants to set the lines of negotiation. As you guys know, he typically does that privately. He doesn't announce what he's going to do in a negotiation because he thinks that it constrains him in private. He's going to have, I think, a lot of good conversations with his team and with others in the days and weeks to come. I'll let the president set the terms of those negotiations, but with all due respect to our friends in the media, I think the president is going to preserve decisional space for himself, and that means not revealing too many of his cards publicly.
I have one more follow-up on the Iran negotiations. Has the violent crackdown of protesters in Iran been part of those negotiations? Does the U.S. Want to push for any kind of human rights assurances to be part of a deal?
Well, I think as the president has said publicly, it's already very much been part of the negotiations that we've had. It's one of the things the president made a very strong demand is that there were prisoners who were going to be executed. The crackdown was, of course, very brutal and violent. And as the president, the entire administration has said, we stand with the people of Iran. We stand with the right of peaceful protest across the world, and certainly people who want to exercise that right in Iran. But absolutely, the president has made that part of the conversations that he's had, not just with the Iranians, but with people all across the region. I'm sure that will continue.
Եվ հաջորդ հարցը հայկական կողմից, and another question from Armenian side.
Thank you. Armen Press News Agency, Anna Kazarian. Mr. Prime Minister, you said in your statement, after the documents signed on August 8, up to now, how much work has been done. And you also generally explained the areas in which we should have expectations in the future. Generally, could you please assess the current level of Armenia-US relations, the current progress of activities, and in the near future, what specifically should we expect? Well, I think this site underlines the level of current relations between Armenia and the US. Our current level of relations is higher than ever, but it's important, as we underscored with the Vice President, the great potential for further developing our relations. Indeed, we are at the highest point today. But the agenda that we refer to in our statements, just implementing that agenda would multiply the scope of our cooperation. And this is very important. We have established a strategic partnership, but it's important to note we are now able to demonstrate concrete manifestations of that strategic partnership, which are tangible, which are visible, and of course, my special appreciation goes to United States President Donald Trump for his personal engagement, but also a few times today, I have already thanked Vice President JD Vance for his personal engagement, because we know on February 7, 2025, the meeting at the White House and the very meaningful discussion and the conversation we had back then was pivotal for the subsequent events. And I expressed special gratitude to the Vice President, because during those days when we were having that meeting, how can I put this correctly? The White House was still transforming. I might even say the Vice President was probably hadn't moved in fully to that work environment. And I very highly appreciate that under those circumstances, he considered that to be an important conversation. So calmly, quietly, for quite a long time, we thoroughly discussed the opportunities and the agenda that could reach us to today's point. And it is worthy of particular appreciation in that environment. And when I got back to Yerevan, the impulses that the Vice President of the United States had given instructions appropriately, these impulses had reached Yerevan before I reached Yerevan. And it is a sign of a particular manifestation of responsibility and professionalism, for which, of course, I express my words of appreciation and my token of respect to the Vice President. Thank you for the questions, Excellencies. Thank you for the responses.
Thank you, Your Excellencies.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Mr. Vice President, to be clear on Iran, are military strikes still on the table? Mr. Vice President.